What's going on in your world? So today's class, we'll be talking about listings. We'll be talking about our market, really talking about exposure. I've got a little bit of data to share with you again, just to help. I always like to try to bring the first few minutes at least to try to talk about narrative. How are we controlling the narrative of what's going on around us? Right. So your consumers, your buyers, your sellers, the people in your sphere are hearing different things about jobs, about taxes, about interest rates, about the market, about inventory. We need to control that narrative as best as possible within our inner sphere. So if we can control that, then we can also get in front of these issues before they become issues, and we can have some open discussions. So a little bit about that. Also, if you have a listing that you would like to discuss, please go ahead and chat the address in. We'll do our best to get to that and kind of discuss that listing a little bit. Whether it's pricing or really just strategy, really just kind of talk about what are the things we're doing, and that's going to be the other focus of today's class. We have listings, inventory has increased. We have to be doing everything we can to expose it to the most amount of buyers, expose it to every bit of the market that's out there and trying to maximize profits from our sellers and proceeds. But we have to make sure we're doing all of those things. So we're going to discuss different things on our listings and how we can maximize those values. So let's go ahead and let us start and jump in to today's class. Let's go and start with interest rates. Big talk for everybody. Interest rates, interest rates, interest rates. Interest rates are going up. The Fed's going to drop. Interest rates are going to come down. When they come down, prices are going to go up. More buyers come to the market. Who knows what's going to happen here come September, because that's the next scheduled meeting with the Fed for an interest rate drop. Who knows? If you know what's going to happen, raise your hand. If you are sure and certain of what's going to happen, raise your hand. And I should not see any hands being raised, because nobody should have any certainty of what's going to happen, right? There's no certainty of what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to increase rates, if they're going to lower rates, the Fed rate that is, which then sometimes has an impact on mortgage interest rates. So what's happening with some of the information that's out there? So there's some job reports that came out. The Fed analyzes every bit of the economy. They analyze job reports. They analyze consumer confidence. They analyze income. They analyze all this data to determine inflation, to determine if we are going to increase or decrease or leave the rate the same. So here's some data that came out that is pointing towards a potential and possible Fed rate cut in September, and here's why. So the Fed's waiting to see the impacts of the Trump administration's policies on tariffs. That's one thing, because if tariffs affect the economy because prices go up and consumers are less confident, don't spend money, and that has a direct impact on their income because they have to spend more and then they stop spending money, that could create an impact on the economy. So they're going to see what's going on with tariffs, immigration, taxes, and regulations. They want to see what impact that has on the economy before they adjust rates. Okay, well, let's talk about jobs. Jobs. Related to number one, there was a speculation that because of the, we'll call it an attack on illegal immigrants and undocumented workers, that was going to increase the amount of jobs that are available. So people losing jobs, there would be a huge surge in the amount of availability of jobs. Well, that didn't happen. In April, jobs did surge, but it wasn't in the field where they typically see job surges for undocumented workers, like hospitality and service type industries. So the job surge did happen in April, but between April and now, April and June, the job openings actually fell. So if there's a lot of job openings, that means that employers can't fill those jobs. They have a lot of openings, and we don't have the workers that are filling those jobs, but job openings are falling. So if job openings are falling, people are obtaining those jobs. Okay, so that means more people are working. If more people are working, that means that there might be more balance to the economy. So on the job side, it's looking pretty good that the economy is kind of balancing out, which could help slow inflation down. So the job openings have stabilized, which means they've been falling over the last 2 years. More people are working. The fear on tariffs impact on the economy is dissipating because August 1st is a deadline that was given for people to respond to, Trump's war on tariffs. So as this date comes closer and they're seeing the impact, which has typically been more revenue that's been coming in and more people will say falling in line and making agreements on tariffs, consumer confidence has been going up over this last month. So the impact that they were potentially expecting with way more job openings and consumer confidence dropping because of the impact of the tariffs, having them having to spend more money, more taxes, more issues on the economy isn't happening. And if those things were happening, the Fed would keep rates the same. And also, mortgage rates typically follow the 10-year Treasury rate. So the 10-year Treasury is down 9 basis points. So if the 10-year Treasury is down, typically mortgage rates follow that. So mortgage rates would follow that. Sometimes the Fed rate will also follow. So if the Fed rate goes down and the 10-year Treasury is down, mortgage rates will probably be going down. No certainty, but jobs are looking good. Economy is looking good. The impact of tariffs is not what they had expected. More revenue, less impact. So there's a good possibility that the economy being a little more balanced might cause a Fed to reduce rates and have a Fed rate cut in September. There's also a lot of pressure on Chairman Powell from the administration to lower rates as well. So again, not political at all. This is just information that's out there for you to discuss. So when people say certain things, you've got some conversations to be able to have with them. Now, we're going to jump off of that and jump into listings. I talked about this yesterday with my group, and I thought it was really impactful for us to be able to discuss this about your listings. I'm going to have a lot of points up on the board, and we'll talk about them, about how to make sure that we are doing everything we can for our listing by asking some simple questions to you, the listing agent. So we're going to go down this list, and I want you all to think about this if you have a listing and answer these questions. Write these down. Answer these questions if you have a listing on the market based on the questions that I'm asking. Number one, how did you get your listing? Did you get it from door knocking? And if you want to, please go ahead and type your answer. And if you have a listing, type your answer into the chat. How did you get your listing? Sphere, referral, friend, door knocking, FSBOs, expired, bumped into somebody, walking through the grocery store, sports, church. Church was the big one in our group yesterday. Had about four out of the 10 listings that we pitched yesterday came from church. How did you get your listing? How did you get your last listing? Please feel free to chat in and type in where you got your last listing. Why is this important? Because if we can find a pattern of where you're getting your business, then maybe we should create a focus on that pattern and where you got the business to try to generate more. If you're getting business from church, how can you integrate with your church more to provide value to first-time home buyers, people who are renting, people who want to increase generational wealth by getting them into home ownership, getting their down payment covered through a down payment assistance program, or getting them into a USDA loan where we can get the seller to pay closing costs, they get into a home with no money out of pocket. So again, this is important because what we're trying to do is focus on where has your business come from? Where did your last listings come from? Where did you get this last listing and this one now? Where did you get it? And if we know where we got the business, we can create a focus to go into that avenue of business to try to generate more, because people there obviously like you, know you, and trust you for whatever reason, and you can create more opportunities. How do I become the most valuable person in this realm of my world? Because that's where I got this last piece of business. How can I become more valuable to try to generate more opportunities so I can help more people? Because if I let anybody in my church, in my sphere, in my network do business with another agent, I'm doing them a disservice because I know I'm the best person for the job. So if we can, how did you get the listing? That's the first question. So we're asking questions about your listing. If you would like, please chat in your answer to these questions. I really want you to focus on answering these questions. Don't just think that you've got it all right and you know exactly what's going on inside that market, because some of us do, some of us don't. But if we start asking different questions, we get different answers, which might give us a different perspective. Some of our listings have been on market 130 days, some on 20 days, some multiple offers, some no offers. So let's ask and answer these questions. Number two, is there any compensation that's being offered on that listing? Yes or no? Are you offering compensation? Yes or no? And what is the difference between offering compensation and requesting the agent to negotiate it within the offer? Well, it comes down to our listing agreement. Listing agreement in section 10, box B says seller has directed us to offer compensation in this amount from the seller to an agent. Box C says no compensation being offered. So if box C is checked, you are not offering compensation. It's not right, it's not wrong, just is. You have to be able to clearly delineate to a buyer's agent. So every time a buyer's agent wants to show that property, it should be in your showing instructions what the compensation is or what your direction is to them regarding compensation. Seller finds value in buyer's agents and appreciates you showing. They have directed that all compensation be negotiated within the offer. Please include your buyer agent compensation in your offer. Or seller is offering X amount of compensation. You either put it in your showing instructions, pick up the phone and call anybody who's showing, or send them a text message and let them know what's being offered so that everybody knows and you're having those conversations. If you create more conversations around it, it becomes more clear, and now all of a sudden you may stand out different from somebody who is not offering compensation, so seller's not offering anything. So make sure we understand the difference. And what is that difference really? We all understand this, correct? The buyer has to pay the buyer's agent. So any listing where they can be construed as them having to pay the buyer agent compensation can put your listing to a potential detriment, which is why it's very clear. It needs to be very clear what the compensation is whenever you have a showing or any type of interest in the property, or what the seller's direction is that we would love to have your offer, and we will not be negotiating the buyer agent compensation, we'll be negotiating the price. Something to that effect. So make sure. So again, nobody's answered any of these questions so far, putting into the chat. So if you have a listing, please, where did you get your listing and what is the compensation that's being offered on that listing, if any? Number 3, are you offering concessions to a buyer? I saw an agent in our local area here post on social media yesterday. This is his post into a large group of people. Number 1, he posted it on his page, but then he posted it into multiple groups. It said, if you are working with an agent, or if you have a seller and, if you are a buyer and the seller is not paying all of your closing costs, move on from that property to the next one. That was his statement. He said, if a seller is not paying your closing costs, if they are not paying all of your closing costs, drop them and move on to the next property. There are plenty of sellers that need to sell that are offering concessions. Ask for closing costs and do not accept anything but those closing costs being covered. What's happening in most of our world? If you ask, here's the other thing. Ask your lender. Mr. Lender, how many of your files that you've received, out of the last 10, how many had closing cost concessions included? It's probably going to be 50 to 80% of them have had closing cost concessions included. So is your seller offering concessions in any way? It might be smart to offer a concession. Now, this is predicated on your price being in the right range. If you're not priced right, if you're not in the right price range, you cannot incentivize a buyer who is not even looking at your property yet. So if we don't have their attraction to the property because you're priced right, you look good, you got all these things in place, now you can incentivize them. But if they're not even looking at your property because you're $20,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 overpriced, you can't incentivize that buyer because they're not there, they're not looking. So maybe if you are in the right price range and you have other properties going under contract around your price range, but you are not, it might be smart to say in your public remarks, talk to your seller about this, seller is offering $10,000, $5,000, $6,000 in concessions to buyer with accepted offer. Seller is willing to assist with buyer's closing cost and or rate buy down. You might want to make that known because right now it is leaning more towards, it's not a buyer's market yet, it's leaning more towards a buyer's market. The buyers are finding more favor in their offers than the seller is a lot of times. So whereas I don't fully, completely agree with the agent's statement of if a seller is not paying all of your closing costs, dump them and move on to the next property. I don't fully agree with that because if that's the right property and you're able to get something covered, it might make the right decision for you, especially if you navigate and negotiate other things. I do understand that the majority of properties right now are offering concessions. So as a buyer's agent, make sure you're asking for concessions for your buyer inside that offer. Home warranty, closing costs, rate buy downs. Make sure you're asking for them. If you're not, you're leaving something on the table. Make sure your buyer has strategized with the lender. Mr. Lender, does it make more sense for me to ask for this much of a credit and use that for closing costs and a rate buy down than to get a lower price? Let's make sure we're having those conversations. Mr. Seller, does it make more sense for me to offer a concession to get that buyer a better payment than it does to lower the price and hope that somebody comes in then because they're probably just going to come in at a lower price anyway? So we need to have those conversations. Number 4, what is the best feature and benefit of your property? There's a reason I'm asking this. So of your listing, what is the best feature and benefit of that? If you don't mind, please chat in what the best feature and benefit of your listing that you have or one of your listings is. What is the best feature and benefit of that property? And if you don't know that, you really need to go and you need to find what it is that the buyers should be attracted to or will be attracted to that stands out. What is the best feature and benefit of your property that's there? You should know this. This is the attraction factor. This is what the buyers should be attracted to. We got the right price. We're in a market where we've got lots of competition. What makes me stand out? Why am I different? Why am I better? Why is mine, quote unquote, nicer? So what are the features and benefits of your property that stand out? Okay. And I see that nobody wants to engage today with chat. 4 questions deep, not 1 answer. That's good. All right. So what is that best feature and benefit? Now that I know what my best feature and benefit is, where is that called out in your listing? If the best feature and benefit is the new roof, the new AC, the new water heater, the new this, the new that, how does a buyer know that? Did I just randomly mention it in the public write-up and public remarks? Did I make sure that is the first line in all capitals in my public remarks? Did I add it into the realtor remarks as well? Did I call attention to the agent to go to the attachments and get a feature and benefit list where I call all of those things out? Is it the amenities of the neighborhood? Do I have photos of those amenities? Is it the pool area, the yard? Do I have an aerial shot of the home showing those? Or is that in the first 5 photos like one of the features and benefits, or is it all the way in the end? So what is the feature and benefit? If that is a selling point of the property, why is that not very prevalent to the buyer and other agents what those features and benefits are? So make sure that you know what the best feature and benefit is and you're calling it out. Number 5, what should a buyer know that's not readily visible? Proximity to things, one of the features and benefits, the updates, upgrades, offering of closing cost concessions, buy downs. What should a buyer know that's not readily visible? Is it called out in your listing that these are the things that are not readily visible? Most times, what we're doing now, a lot of us are just going to ChatGPT, typing in these things, and it spits out this really nicely sounding public write-up. Those aren't the best sometimes. Nobody wants to read a novel all the time. They can see the photos. Sometimes they want bullet points. So how are we calling out the best features and benefits and the things that are not readily visible and available to a buyer in the photos where we can get that information to them quicker? We need to make sure we're calling those things out. Number 6, do you have a pre-inspection done on your property, a pre-listing inspection, or at least a 4-point? You're competing with a lot of other properties. Will you stand out if you have a pre-inspected for buyers' comfort and ease? Report available upon request. All items in pre-listing inspection completed and all items completed and fixed. Insurance readily available. Pre-listing inspection completed, all items addressed. If you haven't done a pre-listing inspection or a 4-point, I would recommend starting to do one of those on every single listing. The seller should, in my opinion, should at least do a 4-point inspection. Your roof, your AC, your electric and your plumbing. It's going to show you what those main issues are, and I would have those addressed before going on the market. You're going to find out about it during your inspection, so you might as well at least do that and remove one of the potential issues. Properties are canceling. We have about a 20%, 1 out of every 5 properties cancels. What do they cancel for? What are the reasons a property listing, a property under contract will cancel? Inspections, financing, and or appraisals. So 50% of the time that a property is going to cancel for all intents is going to be because of inspections. If you can remove 40 to 50% of the possibility of your property's contract canceling by doing a pre-listing inspection, shouldn't you do that? Especially in this market. If your seller is upset because a property that their contract got canceled, we need to take responsibility if we did not let them know they should do a pre-listing inspection. So is there a pre-listing inspection or at least a 4-point? Number 7, with that being completed, what's the cost of insurance? What's your hazard insurance and flood insurance? Do you have quotes? You should have your 4-point done. You should be sending those off for quotes. You should know this is what the current insurance is, or this is a current quote that we just got, because we've all heard our seller say this. Well, I've got insurance. Yeah, but it's an older home. You got a lot of issues. And the new buyer, even though your insurance doesn't care that they're there now because you've been here for so long, the new buyer's insurance will, because you've paid into your insurance over this period of time. So if something happens, they have their protection because you've already paid into that policy for quite a while. They're not as concerned with yours until risks start coming up, meaning your roof gets really old, your AC gets really old, water heater gets really old. Now those risks piled up. Now you're a bigger risk to them. Now they have an issue with you. But until then, they're like, oh, we've already got money from them. They've been there for 10 years. We're okay if we have to pay out a small something. We don't necessarily want to, but we're okay. But a new buyer, new policy, they've received nothing. They want to make sure they're not going to have to pay out. So they want to have those done. So you should have a quote. You should have insurance quotes ready to go. Number 8. Is your property showcased? Is it being used on Zillow Showcase? If you have a listing and it's not showcased, that's a problem. It's $225 right now with an additional maybe about $100 for photos because you have to do a 3D walkthrough and have those specific photos so you get the floor plan and everything done. If you're not having your property showcased right now, you're missing out. You're missing out on a simple way that you can let your seller know. Give them a report every single week, show them all the saves, all the views, all the marketing, and everything that we're doing. And it's going to remove important features on a regular Zillow listing that could be a detriment to a seller. That just makes you stand out, being able to show the seller that this is what we're doing. It gives me more data, more reports, more visibility, and our job is to make more marketability and visibility of the property so we keep more money in the seller's pocket. I'm not saying it's going to fix all of your problems. An overpriced, crappy property is an overpriced, crappy property, and that's all your marketing. It's still going to get more views, saves, and clicks than any other property if you showcase it, but it's not going to fix the problem of a crappy property that needs a lot of work or an overpriced property that needs to have the price come down to get the attraction. It is what it is. Number 9, do you have professional photos? Do you have a 3D walkthrough? Do you have a floor plan? If you have a Zillow Showcase, you have all of those things and done those. But if you don't have a Zillow Showcase, you probably want to look into doing that. The virtual tour that we have. The virtual tour, if you do the 3D walkthrough, your virtual tour becomes that clicking item where they could click through and actually zoom in and do a 360 walkthrough of the house. That's their virtual tour. Great product. Are your photos in a good order? You should sit down with your manager and go over the order of your photos. Should I move the order around? Have I shown the buyer and the agents that are looking at my property the features and benefits of this property within the first 5 to 10 photos? Or are the features and benefits, the nice features and benefits, 15, 20, 25 photos in? Should we move our photo gallery around to put them in a specific order that showcases the features and benefits more? Are you staged? Did you stage the property? Did you physically stage the property, or did you virtually stage your vacant land listing, your vacant home listing? we should be staging properties. Virtual staging is pretty inexpensive now. The most you should be paying is $25 for a photo for some of these professionals, but you can get it done through Fiverr, through AI, through a lot of other things for much cheaper. So if you're not virtually staging your properties, you really need to look into that. If it's a vacant home, I would absolutely do that. It really makes a difference when you virtually stage them. It gives you a lot more visibility on that property. What else? Number 10. What is the highest and lowest price competition of your listing? If a buyer came to your home, and not just in your neighborhood, because your neighborhood is important, I'm talking where a buyer shops. Buyers typically, if they would consider your home, they'll probably consider something within 3 miles around you. So what is the highest and lowest price competition in your market? What can a buyer also buy that's the highest price and the lowest price available that's similar to yours? If they were looking at your property, what's the lowest price competitor that they could go buy? What's the highest price? And we make adjustments to them to see how we're priced based on those. Because if you're 500 and the lowest price is 400, and the lowest price one only needs flooring and paint to look like yours, I guarantee they're going with the 400 because they can put flooring and paint in for a pretty significantly cheap amount of money. They're probably going with that 400. And that's going to go pending. And if the highest price is X and they're nice or not as nice, whatever it is, we go the opposite way. But we need to know what's the highest and lowest price competition of your listing that's on the market. Number 11, what is the closest comparable property that is under contract within 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles around you? Immediately close to me, within 2 miles, 3 miles, what is the closest comparable property that's under contract to my listing? That is what a buyer said they will buy that is similar to yours at a specific price. And why did they choose that one over yours? We need to know. Call the agent and ask, how long were you on market? What kind of showings did you have? Do you mind telling me anything about the offer that you had? Are you at listing price? Are you below that? Was there any concessions being given? Just ask them to talk. If they talk, they talk. If they don't, they don't. But what is the comparable pending properties around you? What is the closest comparable pending? Why did they choose that one based on what was available compared to everything else? Then, sold range. What is the sold property price range? So what is the sold price range that you initially told this seller? What is that sold price range currently? Because I'm pretty certain that if you've been on market 30 days, your sold price range should change or will have changed based on what's happened in the last 30 days. And have you updated that sold property price range? So if my initial price range was $515 to $535, when's the last time I updated that range? You should be doing it weekly. Your seller should receive a weekly email with what the updated price range is based on the recent solds and pendings. And then lastly, what is your recommendation to the seller? You should have a recommendation to every one of your sellers. Unfortunately, I don't feel that no recommendation at this time. That doesn't always apply. I really think there always should be some type of recommendation. Because most of our sellers are starting off in the middle to the high end of that price range. My recommendation to a lot of sellers, not all, this is all circumstantial based on each individual, but my recommendation to a lot of sellers would be, this is my price range based on what we saw, the actives, pendings, and solds. Which one would you like to choose? Where do you feel you should be priced at? Here's the pendings. Notice the pendings are lower in that range. They're on the lower end of everything in that range. I know some sold at $535, but all the pendings are at $515 to $520, and those are just pending prices, not sold. Where do you feel you should be? My recommendation is to be more in line with the pending properties than the sold properties, because the solds are in the last 30, 60, 90 days. The pendings are what's happened recently, and those are going to close at a different price. So what is your recommendation to the seller? Does the seller have a recommendation that you've given them? Have you sent them a weekly email with a recommendation in that email every single week? If any one of my sellers was not in that price range that was recommended in the beginning based on all of our discussions, My recommendation is always to get into that price range with my recommendation to be on the lower end of that price range based on the pending sales that are occurring right now. Please see above. We just need to be having these truthful and honest conversations. We need to ask these questions about every single one of our listings. If you have a listing, ask these questions. Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? And if we haven't done some of these things, then maybe we need to take a different look at our listings. On your buyers, looking at a property, is the seller doing any of these things? Did this cause your buyer to be interested in the property? Did they do a pre-listing inspection? Are they offering concessions? Did they call out all the features and benefits to make sure your buyer was able to see all of those features and benefits and cause them to choose this property over the other one? Are they offering compensation? How did that conversation go with your buyer? Are you negotiating that in the offer? So we need to make sure we're asking all these questions about our listings. And we are at 9:30. That was quick. Oh, why am I not? I see a ton of chats. I don't know why the chats were not showing up. I'm very sorry. None of the chats showed up on my main screen, but now I see them. So let's just go down these chats. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. For some reason, none of the chats showed up on there. So yes, we got some information. Great info. Concessions and compensation being offered. Awesome. Corner lot, golf course. Yeah, Jennifer, for some reason, none of the red dots would show up on chat to show me that I had new chats that came in. Great. Even lost a potential listing because I pointed out potential polybutylene pipe plumbing. Absolutely, it would have been an issue. Will a replay of this meeting? The replay is always available, Juliana. So every meeting, every class that we do, the meetings are recorded. They're sent out usually on Friday or Monday in an email that says, in case you missed it, here's all of the classes. You can also go to our training sites. So the begginsuniversity.com, you can go to that. You can log in and register there. Once you log in and register, if you haven't done so, there are the recordings that are going to be posted there. So you can go to the daily training huddles and you can watch all of those. So again, my apologies. Again, my red dot did not show up on my chat, so I didn't know this was here. So make sure that we're doing everything we can for our listings. Yep, Angelique sends the email out, so you will get an email with all of these. If you want these sooner than that, and you need these, if you need this information sooner than that, please send me an email. I'll share the slide over to you. Happy Wednesday.